Good morning. So, somebody just left Zoom. Don't know why. All right, so today we're gonna just quickly complete the tree, the outline that we created for the peripheral nervous system. I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see that. So if you don't remember, or if you weren't here, or if you didn't watch any of the previous recordings like you should have, on Monday, we started the nervous system. This was the little outline that we created for the peripheral nervous system and kind of like the systems within the systems and how they break down and where they go and what they are. Okay. And we already went over this and reviewed this again on Wednesday. Very important for you guys to check missed videos or the Zoom recordings from classes that you miss. It is a direct correlation between if you're not on Zoom and a failing grade. It's just a fact. Okay, so we're gonna move on here with the autonomic motor neurons, right? It's an autonomic system within the peripheral system. It's called the autonomic system. We talked about it last class, so I'm just going to kind of finish here and let you guys know the next part to it. And I don't know why it keeps doing this. All right, so there's two words here that I'm going to add to the autonomic system. Remember, I put automatic in parentheses because it kind of sounds like autonomic, but I don't want you to get the words confused because they are different words. I put in parentheses just to kind of remind you, automatic processes, right? It's not your skeletal muscle. You don't have to go over this. Okay, so the term I'm looking for, there's two words here that go down. The autonomic breaks down into two. And these two words that I put down, I can literally talk about them for like the next 2 months. That's how detailed it goes. And it's super detailed, but there's only one thing you're really going to need to know. The terms are the sympathetic and parasympathetic, if I could spell. Sympathetic and parasympathetic systems within the systems within the systems. I know it sounds funny, but it's true, okay? And all you need to know about these two terms are that these work together to create a balance in the body. They work together to create a balance in the body. So we are going to watch a video in a few, and the video is going to kind of go into more detail about the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, but you do not need to know the specifics between the two and what each of them do. Just know that one kind of is like a fight or flight, hypes you up, right? Gets you going. And then the other one is more of like a relaxing and calming and digest. It's like a rest and digest type of thing. You don't need to know those. All you need to know is they work together in your body to create a balance. Now, those of you anatomy, physiology people, maybe you've had the class or you're having it now, you might know that what I just wrote down is actually a definition for a specific term, having balance in the body. Does anybody know what term I'm looking for?
Homeostasis.
Yes, homeostasis. Homeostasis. It's just the term for that definition. Creating a balance in the body equals homeostasis, right? And what creates a balance in the body? The sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems working together. And where does this occur? Within the autonomic system within the peripheral nervous system. So if you're able to not only work your way down, talking about the peripheral nervous system, the types of neurons, the sensory kind of system and function in your body, the motor function in your body, somatic and autonomic, sympathetic and parasympathetic, but also being able to work your way up. and kind of know where it comes from. And if you guys remember last on Monday, I told you, Monday and Wednesday, I told you guys, if you're able to go through this, like if you were to delete all the kind of definitions that I wrote down and just had the terms there, and if you're able to go through that by yourself without looking at anything else and explain all of them, you're on the right track. Okay. Other than learning about the parts of the brain, which we're going to start doing soon, this is a really great outline, great starting point. Are there any questions there? Awesome. Okay, we are going to watch a short video. This video is going to be about a guy. Actually, I didn't even know his name, and a couple of the kids in my period, in a couple of my periods yesterday, knew who he was. He's pretty famous. He's like a YouTube star pretty much, and he wrote a book, John something. You guys might know him. The reason why I'm going to have him kind of break down what we've already learned, he might go in a little bit more detail than you really need to know. So don't really worry about that. If there's stuff that you're like, I don't know that. And I'm actually going to fast forward through a part of the video because it's just not needed for our level of our class. But this guy, here he is. Can you guys see this? Can I get a yes?
Yeah, what's up?
So he's gonna, I like to hear things from other people, and there's some visuals here too. And I'm a very visual person. I like to see things, maybe break it down, and maybe something that you might not have understood the way I explained it might explain it better than I do. All right. So for those of you in front of me in class, you can either mute it and try and listen from mine. Hopefully you're already muted. You probably are, because you'd be able to hear me right now. Or you can kind of put your earbuds in or AirPods in or whatever to listen to it that way. But hopefully my computer is loud enough for you guys to hear it. There's only 5 of you in here. Okay, so here's the video.
This morning was a typical morning for me. I woke up thinking about that dream that I keep having about the guy in the sloth suit, and then I got dressed because I was cold, and then I made some toast with butter because I was hungry, and then I let the dog out because she was whining and staring at me, and then I made some tea, but I let it cool off before I drank it because it burned my mouth yesterday. In addition to being just part of my morning ritual, all of these actions are examples of what my nervous system does for me. The weirdo dream, the sensation of cold air and hot tea, deciding what to put on the toast, going to the door, the sound of the dog, all that was processed and executed by electrical and chemical signals to and from nerve cells. You can't oversell the importance of the nervous system. It controls all the things, all your organs, all your physiological and psychological reactions, even your body's other major controlling force, the endocrine system, bows down before the nervous system. There is no you without it. There's no me without it. There's no dogs without it. There's no animals. There's no things, there's things. It's important. That's why we're dedicating the next several episodes to the fundamentals of the nervous system, its anatomy and organization, how it communicates, and what happens when it gets damaged. This is Mission Control, people. Even though pretty much all animals, except super simple ones like sponges, have a nervous system, ours is probably the most distinctive feature of our species. From writing novels to debating time travel to juggling knives, all of your thoughts and actions and emotions can be boiled down into 3 principal functions: sensory input, integration, and motor output. Imagine a spider walking onto your bare knee. The sensory receptors on your skin detect those 8 little legs. That information is your sensory input. From there, your nervous system processes that input and decides what should be done about it. That's called integration. Like, should I be all zen about it and just let it walk over me? Or should I not be zen and freak out and run around screaming, "Spider!" Your hand lashing out to remove the spider, and maybe your accompanying banshee scream is the motor output, the response that occurs when your nervous system activates certain parts of your body. As you can imagine, it takes a highly integrated system to detect, process, and act on data like this all the time. And when we talk about the nervous system, we're really talking about several levels of organization, starting with 2 main parts: the central and peripheral nervous systems. The central nervous system is your brain and spinal cord, the main control center. It's what decided to remove the spider and gave the order to your hand. Your peripheral nervous system is composed of all the nerves that branch off from the brain and spine that allow your central nervous system to communicate with the rest of your body. And since its job is communication, your peripheral system is set up to work in both directions. The sensory or afferent division is what picks up sensory stimuli, like, hey, there's an arachnid on you, and slings that information to the brain. Your motor or efferent division is the part that sends directions from your brain to the muscles and glands, like, hey, hand part, how about you do something about that spider? The motor division also includes the somatic or voluntary nervous system that rules your skeletal muscle movement, and the autonomic or involuntary nervous system that keeps your heart beating and your lungs breathing and your stomach churning. And finally, that autonomic system too has its own complementary forces. Its sympathetic division mobilizes the body into action, gets it all fired up like, spider, while the parasympathetic division relaxes the body and talks it down, like it wasn't a black widow or anything, you're fine, breathe. So that's the organization of your nervous system in a nutshell. But no matter what part you're talking about, they're all made up of mainly nervous tissue, which you'll remember is densely packed with cells. Maybe less than 20% of that tissue consists of extracellular space. Everything else, cells. The type of cells you most likely heard of are the neurons, or nerve cells, which respond to stimuli and transmit signals. These cells get all the publicity. They're the ones we're always thanking every time we ace an exam or think up a snappy comeback to an argument. But these wise guys really account for just a small part of your nervous tissue because they are surrounded and protected by gaggles of...
So that's the part that is a little more than what we really need to know for this class. So I'm going to fast forward and start here.
Super cool things in common. Number one, they're some of the longest lived cells in your body. There's a lot of debate right now about whether you're actually born with all the neurons you'll ever have, but some research suggests that at least in your brain's cerebral cortex, your neurons will live as long as you do. Cool fact number two, they are irreplaceable. It's a good thing that they have such longevity because your neurons aren't like your constantly renewing skin cells. Most neurons are amitotic, so once they take on their given roles in the nervous system, they lose their ability to divide. So take care of them. And number three, they have huge appetites. Like a soccer-playing teenager, neurons have a crazy high metabolic rate. They need a steady and abundant supply of glucose and oxygen, and about 25% of the calories that you take in every day are consumed by your brain's activity. Along with all these wonderful qualities, your neurons also share the same basic structure. The soma, or cell body, is the neuron's life support. It's got all the normal cell goodies like a nucleus, DNA, mitochondria, ribosomes, cytoplasm. The bushy branch-like things projecting out from the soma are dendrites. They're the listeners. They pick up messages, news, gossip from other cells and convey that information to the cell body. The neuron's axon, meanwhile, is like the talker. This long extension or fiber can be super short or run a full meter from your spine down to your ankle. We've got a few different axon layouts in our body, but in the most abundant type of neuron, the axons transmit electrical impulses away from the cell body to other cells. For us students of biology, it's a good thing that nerve cells aren't all identical because their differences in structure are one of the ways that we tell them apart and classify them. The main feature we look at is how many processes extend out from the cell body. A process, in this case, being a projecting part of an organic structure. 99% of all your neurons are multipolar neurons with 3 or more processes sticking out from the soma, including one axon and a bunch of dendrites. Bipolar neurons have 2 processes, an axon and a single dendrite, extending from opposite sides of the cell body. They're pretty rare, found only in a few special sensory places like the retina of your eye. Unipolar neurons, on the other hand, have just one process and are found mostly in your sensory receptors. So if you ever find yourself probing around someone's nervous tissue, remember these 3 terms to help you figure out what you're looking at. But because we're talking about physiology here as well as anatomy, we have to classify these cells in terms of their function. And that basically comes down to which way an impulse travels through a neuron in relation to the brain and spine. Our sensory or afferent neurons pick up messages and transmit impulses from sensory receptors in, say, the skin or internal organs, and send them toward the central nervous system. Most sensory neurons are unipolar. Motor or efferent neurons do the opposite. They're mostly multipolar and transmit impulses away from the central nervous system and out to your body's muscles and glands. And then there are interneurons or association neurons, which live in the central nervous system and transmit impulses between those sensory and motor neurons. Interneurons are the most abundant of your body's neurons and are mostly multipolar. Okay, it's applied knowledge lunchtime. Let's review everything we've learned so far in terms of that spider on your knee. Those 8 creeping legs first activate your unipolar sensory neurons in the skin on your knee when they sense something crawling on you. The signal travels up an axon wrapped in Schwann cells and into your spinal cord, where it gets passed on to several multipolar interneurons. Now, some of those interneurons might send a signal straight down a bunch of multipolar neurons to your quadriceps muscle on your thigh, triggering you to kick your leg out before you even know what's going on. Other interneurons will pass that signal to neurons that carry it up your spinal cord to your brain. That's where your body first recognizes that thing as a spider, and the connections between neurons interpret and split the signal so that you can either scream and start swinging your arms wildly about, or remain calm and with dignity remove the spider from your person. It's all based on the connections between neurons, which brings me to a whole new question.
Okay, so hopefully that kind of gave you guys another way of looking at it from what we talked about on Monday. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is we're going to take a moment break before we get into the next thing, actually. We're going to do a little brain break, a little brain teaser, a little lateral thinking problem. And this goes back to what we did I think it was on Monday, where I had you guys draw something without lifting up your pen or your pencil, if you guys remember, and without tracing over a line that you already made. But this one is like on steroids. It's like times 10. So you can see this? Yes? Okay. What I'm going to ask you to do, you should have your notes out anyway, right? So you're going to try and draw this. It's going to show you the image, and the video only gives you 10 seconds to do it. I'm going to pause it, give you guys a little extra time. All right, and let's see if you get it right. I had multiple people in my classes yesterday be able to do it, but it did take them some time. So let's see if you guys can do it. Here it is. All right, I paused it, give you guys a minute or so. See if you can figure it out. You might mess up a couple times, no big deal. Try it out. And there is more than one way of doing it. You got it? All right. We got a couple people who did it already. Any Zoomers get it yet? All right, 10-second countdown, and then it'll reveal the answer. Here it is. All right, that's the way to do it. There are other ways, of course. I spoke to kids yesterday. They said they did it the same way, but they started from a different point. So anybody at home get it? Zoomers?
Yeah.
No.
I just a little bit different, but yeah.
Okay. All right, that's good though. There's different ways to do everything. That is the most important thing to get from here, right? So good job. All right, last thing we're doing for the day. Share my screen here. Small, short presentation. Some of it is going to be stuff we already learned, Okay. And then there might be, there's going to be some information on the brain, which is going to be a nice little outlook on what we're going to be doing next class. And before I forget, we do not have school on Monday. So it messes up the whole AB thing. So Monday, school's out. Tuesday is a B day, which means Wednesday is an A day. So I have you guys on Wednesday and Friday of next week. Wednesday and Friday of next week. There are some people that do not come to class on Wednesdays, and that's unacceptable. Okay, Zoom class is class, so you need to be here. It is a synchronous class, and you have to be in class. And if you ever miss class, you have to watch the recorded Zooms and check out my my little notes that I put for you on Schoology for where your notes are, especially Monday's notes. So the nervous system, okay? Nervous system, the central nervous system consists of your brain and your spinal cord, which we talked about. But now we're going to go into a little bit more of that, okay? The brain is known as the main control center of your nervous system. We talked about how central, right, main, and that's how you can remember that. And the brain has three major parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the medulla. And each of those three parts has its own special job, all right? The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It contains the two halves of the brain. And another term for half, one side, you can either one side or a half. Another term for that is hemisphere. So you have the right hemisphere and you have the left hemisphere. The word hemisphere just means the side, okay? And the left side of your brain actually controls the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. So lifting up my arm right now, this is my left arm, if you guys can't tell, the right side of my brain is controlling that movement. So it's opposite. The cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. It processes sensory information from your body and is located below the cerebrum. Then you have the medulla. It connects the brain to the spinal cord. The medulla is what connects the brain to the spinal cord, and it controls all involuntary, remember, out of your control, processes like blood pressure, body temperature, heart rate, breathing. So now we're going into a little bit more detail. We've learned about voluntary and involuntary. We learned about sensory, but now we're kind of learning about what actually is in control of those things in our brain. And this just shows you a picture of the cerebrum. So it's this entire thing. And the cerebellum right underneath. So there are lobes of your brain. They're like parts of your brain broken down, okay? You have the frontal lobe, which is in the front right here. It's in charge of speech, movement, emotions, and problem solving. Do you guys remember what I talked to you guys during first marking period? Let's see who actually watched my videos and did my assignments, right? I told you guys something about yourselves having to do with the frontal lobe. Does anyone remember?
Not
Yeah,
the-
it's like it's not fully developed. until
Yes, the
28.
frontal lobe is not fully developed until what age?
Was it 21?
Close, close, close. What? 25. Yes, 25 years old. All right. So this is the part that is the decision-making part. It's the frontal lobe. So as high school teenagers, right, not fully developed, your emotions go nuts, right? Your hormones, in addition to that, doesn't really help out the issue, right? Completely normal at your age. Occipital lobe is in charge of vision. Parietal lobe in charge of touch, temperature, and pain, and the temporal lobe in charge of hearing and memory. Okay, I'll tell you right now, you're going to need to know those things moving forward. Next class, we're going to have more information about the brain. So it's not like you have to quickly write all this stuff down right now. You're also going to have this PowerPoint available to you on Schoology under PowerPoints. So you can always go and look back there as well. Spinal cord, okay? Nerve fibers in your spinal cord allow the brain to communicate with the peripheral nervous system. We talked about that. But I like pictures. Pictures are fun. And this is just a little review, okay? The peripheral system, messages about your environment, travel in the nervous system through cells called neurons. Neurons is a nerve cell that specializes to transfer messages in the form of fast-moving electrical energy, impulses, right? Messages. A neuron has a large region in the cell body, called the cell body, in the center. We're going to show a picture of that on the next slide. Dendrites are branched extensions of that cell. Axons are the elongated extension, kind of in that middle of the neuron. And the tip of each axon is known as the axon terminal. And so for those visual people, this is it right here, okay? In the video you saw, there was a lot more to it. I fast forward through that because you don't need to know all those details. This is the most simplistic structure of a typical neuron that you will need to know. You will also need to know these 5 parts of the neuron for your test. You will need to know these 5 parts of this neuron for your test. You will need to know the 5 parts of this neuron for your test. Okay, once again, we are going to go over this again next class, as well as this will be available for you guys to look at any time, and it will be found in PowerPoints in Schoology, as well as this recorded Zoom later on. Okay, fun facts. Just some fun facts. A newborn baby's brain grows 3 times in 1 year. Okay, it's one of the fastest growing times ever, the first year of a human. If we lined up all of the brain's neurons, it would stretch 600 miles. That's how many neurons are in the brain. As we get older, the brain loses 1 gram per year in weight. There are 100 billion neurons in your brain alone, just in your brain, 100 billion. The folds of the brain are called gyri. Average human brain weighs about 3 pounds. Okay. Any questions there? Any questions? All right.